Okay, welcome back. Underwater levels. And we are going to be doing an interesting video. This is going to be our update video for um, the end of last year and the end of 2025, going into what we want to do for 2026. Also, we're going to be trying to set another high score. So I noticed on the Twin Galaxies leaderboards, the world record leaderboards, that for the NES Classic Edition, the high score for Mario Bros. It was over 4 million. I've only gotten 1 million, so I'm not going to be trying to go for that, at least not yet. But they also had a separate category, highest score no POW challenge, meaning you can't hit the POW block even once and your score is instantly disqualified. And I saw that the high score for that was very much within reach, 77,350 points. So I went ahead and I did it the other day and I racked up 424,560 points. And I submitted that. It's currently in the process of being validated. But I wasn't that happy with it. I know I can do so much higher. I want to get about 700,000 without hitting the POW block on the NES Classic Edition of Mario Bros. But we're not going to submit it. Unless someone breaks the 424 and but doesn't break whatever score we set here. So we're going to do our update. We're going to talk about the channel going forward, and we're also going to be going for 700,000 points. No POW on Mario Bros. On the NES Classic Edition. Alright, let's go ahead and jump right in. So the couple of times I've done a update video on the channel, I've always talked about... I've always renewed my pledge that this will only ever and always be a hobby channel. We are not going to be... We will never ask for donations. We're never going to... Not that anyone's ever going to offer us a sponsorship, but we would never do anything like that. And, we're not going to shill any products because a corporate sponsor paid us to. And we're also never going to turn on AdSense. No ads. Although, from what I understand, YouTube has been running ads without my permission on my Friday the 13th video and my one of my Super Mario RPG videos. So, very disappointed about that, but I promise you I did not do it. It was something that I guess YouTube reserves the right to do when your video, if it's family friendly and reaches enough views. So I apologize. If you've ever had to watch I personally believe that all videos on YouTube should be ad-free, but that's just not the way it is. Alright, so, all that out of the way, what a year this channel had. Oh, am I going to be able to... Yeah, I should have enough time. Kind of goofed off on this bonus round. But yeah, so we went ahead and set some world records last year. Last year we were doing a lot of some score chasing. We played a lot of the black box games, and I got some pretty good scores on Balloon Fight and Mario Bros. Was able to get over 700,000 points, and I knew that with a little more practice, I could probably get over 1 million. So that became my goal. And at the end of last year, I had enough of... I think I was so sick of playing games like Urban Champion and Slalom and Mach Rider that I was like, alright, let me just do some score chasing I want to do. So I went ahead and went back to Donkey Kong Jr., Mario Bros, Balloon Fight. I was able to get over 1 million points on Mario Bros. And Balloon Fight. Was super excited to put those on my channel as a really cool flex. I also did, and this was on the NES Classic Edition, of course. And then I also did the Super Mario Bros. No Lives Lost challenge. I got over 769,000 points without losing a single life on Super Mario Bros. Thought that was a really cool flex to put on the channel. And I was talking to my pal Rockin' Cat Reviews about it, and he said, you may want to check and see if some of those are world records. And I didn't believe they would be because, these are games that retro gamers have been, playing on and score chasing for years. So I figured, that they wouldn't even be close. What I had not figured when I went to the Twin Galaxies webpage, I did not account for the fact that these games were being played, that when I was playing them, I was playing them on the NES Classic Edition, which is considered a separate platform, and it's a much newer platform compared to the original Nintendo Entertainment System. So when I did that, I noticed that, hey, my scores are actually pretty good on the NES Classic Edition, so I decided I would do some, like my Donkey Kong Jr. high score was very close to a world record high score. That was the first one I decided to grind on. Did not take long, only a couple of attempts before I had the Donkey Kong Jr. world record high score on the NES Classic Mini. Balloon Fight took a couple of weeks grinding on. I was able to get that one. Then, of course, I did, whoops. I did the, Mario Bros. No POW block, as well as, the Super Mario Bros. No Lives Lost high score. And I'm still sitting on 2 scores that I have yet to submit. My Super Mario Bros. 3 Standard Rules high score, as well as Extreme Rules high score. Extreme Rules meaning unlimited point pressing, but you can't skip any levels or hammer bros, and you can't lose any lives. So, once I figure out how to get how to submit those videos, they're kind of longer, so I've been having kind of a tough time submitting them. But once I figure out how to submit them, and I've got to be honest with you, the Super Mario Bros. 3 Standard Rules high score, that one I want badly, because to me, there is nothing cooler than being able to say, oh yeah, I've got the world record for the high score in Super Mario Bros. 3, one of the all-time greatest video games ever made. So that's one I'm going to be making sure we get. As soon as I can figure out how to get it uploaded and properly submitted, stand by. Alright, so those videos are already on the channel, but as far as what we want to do with the channel going forward, now that we've had such a great year, so there is still one world record that I want badly. And that is the Pac-Man on the NES Classic Edition high score. That was going to take some grinding because I am not quite where I want to be able to set that high score. I'm about 10, 15,000 points off. It's also a really hard game to get good at. But anyway, that's one you can count on seeing on the channel hopefully very soon. Hopefully we get the world record for that. Some things I want to do a little bit better on the channel. So I haven't been that good about photographs. So one thing I intend to do is, so my world record certificates, I will be photographing those and putting them on Instagram as well as a community post. There are also some custom cartridges that I want to, because that's the world record certificates. Come on, how can you not show that off? It's such a flex to be able to say I have a world record high score on some of these awesome, legendary, classic black box games. So we'll be photographing the and putting them on Instagram, the Twin Galaxies World Record certificates. Something else, my custom cartridges. I don't know that I've talked that much about them on the channel lately, but I have some really cool custom cartridges that I want to take pictures of, put on the channel, and put on Instagram. I'll go ahead and tell you what they are, because I'm very proud of my custom cartridges. And I'm not someone that's really big into like home brews or custom cartridges, but these ones are super cool. One is, if you've ever seen the Angry Video Game Nerd episode where he plays Back to the Future, it's called Back to the Future Revisited or Revisit. I think it's Revisited. On the floor in one of the shots of the nerd room is a copy of Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles on NES, but it is in a clear green shell instead of in the, the traditional gray cartridge. And I always thought that was so cool. And I remember looking for one on eBay years and years ago, and I found one. I thought, oh, that's great. I should really jump on that and get it, but I didn't, and it sold. And I was like, okay, I'll get it next time it pops up. And there was no next time. I waited and waited, and for years I did not see another one pop up on eBay until fairly recently, maybe a year ago. I finally saw a copy on eBay, and I pounced. I had to have it. It was a reasonable price, too. So it's really cool. It is a authentic Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles NES board. What they did was they removed it from a cartridge, extracted it, and then inserted it into a clear green cartridge. Put a brand new label on it, and it's a thing of beauty. One of my absolute favorite cartridges that I own. Definitely like a showpiece of the collection. Then I have a couple other I have the AVGN Adventures clear blue cartridge. That one I won't get till this summer, though. It's on pre-order from Limited Run Games. The idea of getting a clear blue cartridge was interesting to me. I don't have the clear Nintendo World Championship cartridge from Retro USB. Maybe I'll get one of those eventually. They don't make them anymore, so I'd have to wait for one to pop up on eBay. So that's something that I may do in the future. Missed the jump. Couple other custom cartridges that are actually in my possession are my Donkey Kong Jr. Updated Edition cartridge. Oh, I can't believe I missed that. And my Super Mario Bros. 2 Japan cartridge. So, here's a funny story. Basically, we're gonna be able to play Doki Doki Panic, the Japanese Japanese version of Super Mario Bros. 2 USA, with the original Eastern-looking character sprites and original visuals and sound effects, which are different from what we got with the American Super Mario Bros. 2. I'm pretty excited about it. What happened was, so years ago, I found on eBay a dealer that, I don't know, I guess you'd call them homebrews, but I don't think that's really the right word. And I want to go ahead and stress this now. These games have authentic boards in them. It's not like some cheap AliExpress or Wish.com flash cards. These are the real deal. But there's a seller, and I'll go ahead and plug them. Golden Age Games has a shop on eBay. And he sells these really nice custom cartridges. So, years ago, I got Donkey Kong Updated Edition. You know, I found him on eBay, and his store, I was like, and what it was listed as was authentic board inside a cartridge, you know, not a cheap flash cart, that had a version of Donkey Kong that actually had the missing cement factory stage. Yeah, those of you that are familiar with Donkey Kong on the NES know that it's both the Arcade Classics edition as well as the black box version of Donkey Kong. They're both missing. You know, the arcade version of Donkey Kong had... Just go ahead and knock these guys out. I'm sorry. But the arcade version had 4 boards, or 4 levels, whatever you want to call it. They had the barrel stage with the girders, the escalator stage, the stage with the rivets, as well as the stage with the cement factory, or pie factory, whatever it is. So Golden Age Games had, you know, they were selling this cartridge, and I remember you pay a little more because it is an authentic board, but in my opinion, totally worth it. You know, for 40 or 50 bucks, you have a cartridge that actually has the missing stage in it. I mean, how awesome is that? And I remember you know, those of you who've been paying attention to the channel, they've probably seen me play it. It was one of the first videos I played, was updated version. Like, imagine having that cartridge back in, like, 1990. You know, you're showing off to your friends, hey, check it out. I have a Nintendo game. I have Donkey Kong, and it actually has the missing level in it, and it's totally authentic. You know, how awesome is... If you had that back in 1990 or whatever, you'd be the coolest kid on the planet. Also in his shop, which I purchased at the time, was Super Mario Bros. 2 Japan, the actual Japanese version of Super Mario Bros. 2, which we didn't get until the Lost Levels, which kind of a bittersweet game because it's got updated visuals, so it looks a little less authentic. But, you know, on my channel, I do have Super Mario Bros. 2, the Japanese version, and that's totally awesome. I love it. I played it on the channel once, a long time ago. I'm not very good at it, so it might be a while before I get it. But man, again, you know, this is something that I'll be posting on my Instagram, but it is so cool to be able to have to play on my Nintendo Entertainment System the Japanese version of Super Mario Bros. 2. Now, this was years ago when I bought these cartridges, so I recently, you know, I remember back then he had Doki Doki Panic. Again, authentic board on in an NES cartridge that you could play on your Nintendo Entertainment System. Just such a cool idea. But he had that in his shop, and for whatever reason, I passed on it at the time, and yeah, I remember thinking, oh, I'll get it later, you know. Right now I have Super Mario Bros. 2 USA, that's good enough for me. And that is another one that I end up regretting. Because his shop never bothered to, you know, I got in touch with him and he didn't have it. So I got in touch with him and I asked him, hey, do you remember me? We did business years ago. I bought a couple of really cool cartridges from you. You know, he had a bunch of homebrews that I didn't really recognize, wasn't really all that interested in. So when I got in touch with him, he said, yes, I remember you. I remember selling you those cartridges. We are not... I asked him if you ever planned on... if he was going to get Doki Doki Panic in stock again. And he said, well, we're not going to do Doki Doki Panic again, but here's what I'll do, is I will make a private listing just for you. And I will put it together just for you and sell it just to you. So he sent me the private listing. He said, you're going to have to wait a couple weeks while I get the parts together. So he sent me the link, and, you know, for the private listing on eBay, I went ahead and purchased it, and long story short, very soon we're going to be able to play Doki Doki Panic on the HDMI Kevtris, and I am super excited about it. This is a game I've been wanting to do on the channel for a long time now. So stay tuned. Doki Doki Panic's coming up. Photographs of my Twin Galaxies World Record Certificates is coming up. Pictures of my custom cartridges is coming up. Here's another one. Some of you probably saw my video where I did the Super Mario Bros. One Life high score. Those of you that saw that video know that a challenge I want to do in the near future is the Atari points patches challenge. In other words, so long story short, the those old Atari video games by Activision, like River Race, Chopper Command, Kaboom, Stampede, when you bought them back in the early 1980s, Activision had a really cool promotion where you could win these really cool custom patches. If, like, they would give you a score, and if you were able to beat that high score and take a Polaroid of it and send it to the mailing address that they provided, they would send you a really cool custom patch depending on which game you got the score on. So I've purchased some of these, and I want to buy some of these old Atari games. Thankfully, Atari games are pretty cheap. So I'll take some pictures of these Atari patches, the ones that I own. Also, once I do have all of the scores for some of these Atari patches that I've purchased, I'm going to put them in like a really cool display case. Oh, I don't think I'm going to be able to get it. Yeah, just missed it. But I'll make a really cool case for them to show them off. Let's see, what else do we want to show off or talk about? Okay, so even though I've set a bunch of world record high scores on the NES Classic Edition for some of these old score-chasing black box games, I do still very much crave being able to get on the Twin Galaxies leaderboards for the original hardware. You know, the original Nintendo Entertainment System. The thing is, I looked at some of those scores, and they're ridiculous. Some of them are... most of them are so high that, you know, unless I picked one and just focused on that, I'd probably never have a shot at getting any of them. So here's what we're going to do. Is we do have some really good scores which are good enough to get us respectable positions on the Twin Galaxies leaderboards. I'm talking like, you know, top 3 or top 5 in games like, you know, Balloon Fight and Wrecking Crew. So next year, we are going to go for some leaderboard. We're going to go for like some respectable leaderboard positions on NES Classic black box games. Games like Clu Clu Land and Donkey Kong 3. But there's going to be a couple of catches. So the first catch is they're going to want us to use a different setup. Like, we're actually going to have to, if you're going to submit high score on original hardware, we're going to have to actually, like, you know, show the face and show the hands so that they can see that it is authentic hands playing an authentic system. The threshold is a little bit higher than what we're doing here, but it's worth it because to get our name on the leaderboard for some OG black box games, no, I think it's super exciting, super cool. The other catch is we're going to have to use our real name. Well, it's not so much that we have to. But my opinion is if I'm going to go through the trouble of getting you know, on the leaderboard for the original NES hardware, I'm going to want to use my real name, you know, because that's to be able to have like a high score, a top 10 high score in a game like Mario Bros. Or Donkey Kong Jr. or Balloon Fight for the Nintendo Entertainment System. Yeah, I'm going to want my real name attached to that so that everyone can see it. So that's one of the goals. And also, I think if we're going to do the Atari patch challenge, then we're probably also going to want to, because there is a forum of old Atari gamers online that does recognize they're, you know, keeping the spirit of the patch challenge alive. But I think they do want to see a traditional setup so that they can recognize you on the forums as having achieved a patch-worthy score. Okay, so 360,000 points. We're over the halfway point of where we want to be. We've blown a few bonus rounds on the way there. Haven't hit the POW once, so only lost one life. So the POW challenge is still very much in order. So, something else I'd like to talk about, since we got plenty of time. OG legends of score chasing. Your Mount Rushmore of retro gamers, if you will. Kind of a silly topic, but it's one that I don't think has really gotten a whole lot of discussion. Summoning Salt, if you watch his videos, he kind of dabbles in it a little bit when he talks about some of the older, like, speedrunning high scores or whatever. But nevertheless, I thought it would be fun to talk about. So without further ado, so I think the original original great Nintendo gamers, you have to talk about Thor Åkerlund and Rich Ambler. One of those names may be more familiar, Thor Åkerlund, one, because it's so memorable, but two, because it's associated with something that retro gamers are still a little obsessed with, even today. But Thor Åkerlund, widely regarded as the original Nintendo champion because I believe he was the outright winner of Nintendo Power Fest back in 1990, 1989 or 1990. But his top competitor was Rich Ambler, and I believe they competed at several other competitions. I'm pretty sure Rich did. I don't know about Thor. But Thor also widely regarded as one of the original Tetris masters, which is why he was so well suited for Power Fest, why he did so well at Power Fest. Because so much of the Nintendo World Championship... Oh, look at that, we're at 400,000 even. But so much of the Nintendo World Championship was determined by your score in Tetris. That's where you racked up the most points. You know, for many of us retro gamers, you know, if anytime you see the movie The Wizard, only two or three things come to mind. One is the Power Glove for the silly scene with Jackie Vincent, aka Lucas, where he plays the uses the Power Glove to do ridiculously well at Rad Racer. But in all fairness to the Power Glove, from what I understand, it did work pretty well with Rad Racer. And aside from Rad Racer and maybe Super Glove Ball, those were the only games it was considered functional for. But be that as it may, whenever we see the Wizard, we think of the silly Power Glove, Super Mario Bros. 3, and Power Fest. And of course, when we think of Power Fest, we think of Rich Ambler and Thor Åkerlund. Now, Thor does have a YouTube channel today. He's not very active on it. I've checked it out a couple of times. I think he has done some streaming on Tetris. Admittedly, I haven't caught any of his Tetris streaming attempts. So, I don't know. I really don't know what they're up to, but nevertheless, because they were the winners of Power Fest and Thor being a Tetris master and having such a cool name, I guess they have to be widely regarded as the original great Nintendo gamers. One more note about... Well, no, I guess that's all we wanted to say about Thor and Rich. Yeah, because they're synonymous with Nintendo Power Fest, I guess we have to regard them as being original greats. Alright, so, the next one, Jonas Neubauer. And those of you, probably the most familiar name, Jonas Neubauer, an absolute legend, a Tetris legend. The first one to roll over the score, or excuse me, max out the score. And of course, he won, what, 6 or 7 of those classic Tetris World Championship tournaments. You know, just an absolute pro. Really, a really cool guy, too. Like, every time I love going back and watching footage of his old tournaments that he competed in. Because he just seemed like such a really cool guy. It really is a shame we lost him so young. But very fit because he was such a great ambassador for Tetris. We're gonna blow another bonus round. It's fitting that they named the classic the classic Tetris World Championship tournament after him. He was a really cool guy. I think when you know, the Tetris tournaments, the classic Tetris tournaments started, you know, it was a much smaller. It's still kind of a small deal, but it was a much smaller deal back when he was competing in them. But nevertheless, he was really fun to watch. Highly recommend if you haven't seen any of those old Classic Tetris World Championship tournaments where Jonas emerged victorious, go back and watch them. You know, Jonas is such an interesting guy. All right, so we've got Thor Ackerland, Rich Ambler. We've got Jonas Neubauer. Let's see, who else do we want to talk about? Here's one that you probably don't know about. Mr. Tom Vovada or Votava? I apologize if I'm butchering that. Only hardcore retro gamers probably know about Tom. I think it's Vovada. And it was funny, like, I didn't really know about him until fairly recently, when I was going on the Twin Galaxies leaderboards and looking at all the old high scores for you know, the black box games like Kung Fu, Mario Bros, Balloon Fight, you know, whatever. I kept seeing Tom Votava's name, and I was, you know, and he set some really crazy high scores in all these games. You know, go if you ever have a minute, go look at the Twin Galaxies leaderboards for black box score chasers, or heck, you could probably check out a great number of classic NES games. But me personally, I like checking out the black box games like Donkey Kong 3 and Popeye. And Tom has a ton of those records. Not only does he have most of the records, but they're all like ridiculous. The ones that he has, they're all like ridiculously high scores. He is quite the retro gamer. And the last one I want to talk about is... Oh, by the way, Tom Votava was... I did see that he was mentioned in... I guess he's something of a speedrunning legend, too. I was watching Summoning Salt's video on the Castlevania speedrunning world record, and he said that back in the early 2000s, Tom Votava... Or, I'm sorry, if it's Vovada, I apologize. But he set the Castlevania world record speedrun originally back in the early 2000s. It's been optimized, you know, since then. But man, he is a legendary retro gamer. It's amazing that he's not talked about more often. And the other one I wanted to bring up, and this is a name I hope you know, Matt Turk. What a legend. To me, Matt Turk is kind of like the folk hero, like almost like the Paul Bunyan of retro gamers. Because Matt Turk, you know, you look at if you haven't watched Summoning Salt's video, I know I'm making a lot of recommendations, but if you only watch one of Summoning Salt's videos, I highly recommend. It's either the Tetris... You know, the history of Tetris World Records, which is, you know, talks quite a bit about Jonas Neubauer. Or, I highly recommend you check out... It's basically the history of the Mike Tyson's Punch-Out World Records. but it's called The Quest to Beat Matt Turk. It is nothing short of phenomenal that Matt Turk was a dedicated enough retro gamer to figure out all the strategy, all those optimized strategies for winning fights in Mike Tyson's Punch-Out so quickly. I tend to think of Matt Turk as, like I said, kind of like a folk hero of retro gaming, because for Matt Turk to be that good at Mike Tyson's Punch-Out, he was also like setting records and speedrunning records in Contra, which means he basically mastered Contra, and probably a number of others that I don't know about. But to me, Matt Turk is like, you know, for those of us that were Nintendo gamers in the late 80s or early 1990s, it was like if you could beat like Super Mario Bros. 2 or The Legend of Zelda, you were considered a good gamer. If you could beat a game like, I don't know, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, you were considered a pro. Now, if you could beat no one, I don't know anybody back in the day that could beat, like, Battletoads or Mike Tyson in Mike Tyson's Punch-Out. If you could beat those, you were probably considered a video gaming wizard, you know, an absolute demigod. And everyone seemed to know someone that knew of someone that could beat Mike Tyson, or, you know, beat a game like Battletoads. But nobody actually knew someone that could do it. They just seemed to know someone that knew of, oh yeah, my friend's older brother, or my older brother's friend knows someone that can do it, you know. No one seemed to know this person themselves. They just seemed to know, you know, it was like they didn't exist. Well, in my opinion, Matt Turk is probably that guy. Matt Turk must have been that guy. You know, when you look at what he was able to do with Mike Tyson's Punch-Out in the early 2000s, with those times, utterly ridiculous. He must have been that guy. It's so funny, too, because I assume there's a little bit more known about Tom Vavada, but I don't know anything. I don't think anybody really knows anything about Matt Turk. He, like, there's like one picture of him on the internet. He's just not someone that is discussed all that much. Despite the fact that he has, you know, such an incredible reputation among retro gamers. Alright, so there you have it. I've discussed some of the all-time great original retro gaming superstars. Discuss where we're going with the channel in the future. Discuss what we did in the past year. Renewed our pledge for no ads. And we still have well over 100,000 points to go before we get to that 700,000 point mark. What we're doing right now is called vaulting. You know, when you set a high score, because we're already well above the high score I submitted, but when you set a high score with the purpose of not immediately submitting it, but holding on to it in case, it's known as vaulting. I would really like to not blow any more bonus rounds. There we go. Alright, closing in on 600,000. My backlog of games I really want to get around to playing just keeps increasing because I'm so tied up with score chasing. But, yeah, I'm staring at a copy of Silent Hill Homecoming, which I've been wanting to play for a year now. Still haven't gotten around to it. Still never finished Donkey Kong Country 64. And now I was looking at Donkey Kong Tropical Freeze on the Switch. It looks like a lot of fun. You know, I'd really like to get to it eventually. I'd really like to, you know, I'll get a copy and it'll sit on my shelf for a few years, but that's how it goes. You know, right now we are you know, score chasing was something I always wanted to, this is what the channel was originally going to be when I started it. And I'm sure I've mentioned this before, but this really is one of my favorite games to score chase. I admit, this game is quite a bit easier than the arcade game because it doesn't have the icicles. The fireball is a little more mellow. But this game is just so fun for me. Like, you're in control. The controls are very good and fluid. It's so fair. Like, the only time it feels unfair is if you're standing by the pipe and a fireball spawns right on you. But other than that, just love this game. I could play this all day. Maybe someday we will go for that 4 million point world record high score. It's quite a lot to ask, because it takes me, I think, about an hour and a half to get 1 million. So that's a long time to be, you know, we're basically going to have a phenomenal marathon style. guess I should also give an honorable mention to Matthew Isles for his ridiculous balloon fight world record high score, over 10 million points. You know, when I think about how tough it was just for me to grind out 1,300,000, the fact that he was able to grind out well over 10 million, just insane. What a absolute pro. Alright, we still got 2 more lives. We are... I don't know if we'll get to 1,000,000, but we will definitely make it over... almost certainly make it over 700,000. And that's what we like to do, just rack up points in this level. So this year, I actually managed to do one of my goals, which was to make more content, as if I could actually call this content, but to make more videos around Christmas, the holidays, the winter months. It seems like every winter I always say, okay, like the last 4 years or whatever, I always say, okay, I'll post more videos in the winter because I'll have more free time because it'll be miserable outside and I won't want to do anything. And then, you know, between the hustle and bustle of the holidays or whatever, it just doesn't happen. I always get caught up, or maybe I'm just not interested in the games I'm playing. But this time we actually did it. We actually played a lot of games, did a lot of really cool stuff. Alright, so we're over 700,000. The goal is met. Let's see if we can push it a little further. Oh. That's one of the things I've noticed. Whenever I have like a goal for a score or whatever, once I've met it and I'm just trying to pad it, I do tend to, I do tend to lose my focus. So 709,820 points. No POW challenge. Totally lost focus, but whatever. Maybe one day we'll try and do over 1,000,000 on the no POW. But for now, over 700,000 I think is pretty good.